Paula Zahn, Wolf Blitzer coming up next. They're going to be followed by Larry King.
In Baghdad today, pulling down Saddam Hussein and celebrating the start of a new Iraq.
Anyone seeing the faces of the liberated Iraqis, the free Iraqis, has to say that this is a very good day.
Now for the challenges ahead, ending the fighting, restoring order, and rebuilding the country.
Why are they not here? Why don't they work to rehabilitate the electricity and the water?
Plus, the power of symbolism, a brief moment of triumph that may have sent unintended messages around the Middle East and to the rest of the world. Live from Baghdad, Washington, Kuwait City, and cities around the globe. Live from the front lines with Paula Zahn in New York and Wolf Blitzer in Kuwait City.
Good evening and welcome. This is a live picture of Baghdad, essentially a city and a country without an organized government tonight, Wednesday, April 9th, day 22 of the war in Iraq. From CNN's Broadcast Center in New York, I'm Paula Zahn.
And good evening, I'm Wolf Blitzer reporting tonight live from Kuwait City. Coming up this hour, where Saddam Hussein after coalition troops storm the capital, that is, citizens take to the streets. The leader of Iraq is nowhere to be seen. The story from our David Ensor, but first, let's go back to Paula in New York. Paula?
Thanks, Wolf. The scene earlier today in Baghdad was truly historic. As a crowd cheered, U.S. Marines pulled down a larger-than-life statue of Saddam Hussein. For the record, it happened at 6:50 p.m. Baghdad time, 10:50 a.m. here in the eastern U.S. The crowd had tried for almost 2 hours to bring the statue down before the Marines stepped in to help. More unforgettable images follow, particularly parts of that same crowd pulling the head of the Saddam statue through Baghdad streets. Here, someone is actually riding it. At other times, people ran alongside, sometimes throwing shoes at it, sometimes beating it. Now, the fate of the real Saddam Hussein remains unknown. As for the situation in Baghdad right now, we check in with Craig Nelson of Cox Newspapers. He's in the Palestine Hotel, which is just across the street from where Saddam Hussein's statue used to stand. Good evening, Craig. Thanks so much for being with us. Describe to us what is going on at this hour of the morning there.
Well, just after 3 o'clock in the morning, it's very quiet. There's a great deal of relief here. The Palestine Hotel yesterday was the scene of a tank shell which hit the hotel and killed a couple of journalists. Today, the same lobby that had Iraqi Information Ministry officials in it yesterday has U.S. Marines. And behind me, there are scores of American tanks and armored personnel carriers and hundreds of Marines. Keeping the order at least around the hotel. Beyond it, there are many questions, I think. There are pockets of looting in Baghdad. There's violence in different parts of the city. It's definitely a city that's very volatile and could erupt at any time. So it's a precarious situation still, despite the very, very dramatic footage that you saw there today and we saw firsthand here.
Describe to us, from where you were standing, what you saw earlier today when we saw that very strong symbolism of that enormous statue of Saddam Hussein being pulled to the ground.
Well, it was very dramatic. I think that the footage may be a little bit misleading. There were probably 200 to 300 people there. There weren't thousands. This wasn't a people power moment, I would say. This is a country, I think right now, where there are many, many Iraqis that are relieved. They were ecstatic to see the Marines come up the Sadoun Avenue behind me earlier this afternoon. But there are also Iraqis that are extremely sad and very humiliated by the situation, by the experience. I think they oppose Saddam Hussein in many cases, but at the same time, the fact that it took an outside force, a Western army, to come in here and clean things up is for them a very traumatic experience.
And describe to us in greater detail the varying reactions to the statue coming down. We had one reporter, as we were covering it live this morning, saying that he did see some cheering in some quarters, and then there were those, I think you were just talking about, who were standing back on the sidelines, which a much different approach.
Yeah, the people that were cheering were ecstatic, and it was spontaneous and genuine. They ran to the Marines, they gave them flowers, they tried to embrace them. But then there were those Iraqis who were very upset about the flags, the American flags being flown, in the attempt by a Marine to put an American flag across the face of Saddam Hussein. Eventually that American flag was replaced with an Iraqi flag. But as I said, this was authentic and genuine enthusiasm. Off on the side, there were people that are actually weeping copiously. They were very, very upset. They said they opposed Saddam Hussein, but at the same time they said that it was unfortunate that it had to come to this, that it required a Western army to come in here and take care of business.
Craig Nelson, thank you very much for providing your insights tonight. And Wolf, I guess I'm reminded as we watch this all happen live earlier this morning of what we later learned from the Pentagon as they were watching these same pictures we were, and there was an audible gasp when they saw that Marine put the American flag on the statue of Saddam Hussein's head, and then, as you remember, was quickly removed, replaced then by the pre-Gulf War Iraqi flag, and then that too later came down. But there was great sensitivity to the fact that there would be perception that these were in fact occupiers that came, not liberators.
And that's the message they've been trying to project to the Arab and Muslim world, that they're not coming to occupy Iraq, as you say, but they're coming to liberate Iraq. Just 2 miles away from that joyous scene, by the way, Paula, the accomplishment of toppling the Saddam Hussein statue, open warfare was underway at Baghdad University. CNN's Martin Savage was with the U.S. Marines who fought their way onto the campus.
We're way beyond sniper fire. This is all out complete engagement here. We've got mortar fire, heavy machine guns. Fires are now burning on the campus. This is Baghdad University, and it is warfare on this campus.
We apparently have lost that piece, and when we can re-rack it, we will bring it back to you. Meanwhile, about 50 miles south of Baghdad, U.S. troops are gaining more ground. Soldiers from the Army's, 101st Airborne Division have disclosed Saddam Hussein's loyal Fedayeen fighters from the town of Hillah. Ryan Chilcote says after encouraging fierce resistance there, U.S. troops are now getting, of all things, kisses.
Soldiers from the 101st Airborne's 3rd Brigade have taken control of the central Iraqi city of Hillah. Hillah is home to roughly 1 million Iraqis. It is also home, as you see behind me, to the ancient ruins of Babylon. Well, soldiers from the 101st Airborne taking precautions this morning as they moved into downtown Hillah. You see them here raiding a courthouse, moving from room to room in that courthouse, making sure there are no Iraqi fighters left inside, and there weren't. Instead, soldiers from the 101st Airborne fighting their way through cheering crowds on the streets. One U.S. commander, watch this, even getting a kiss from 2 Iraqis. Ryan Chilcote, CNN with the 101st Airborne in Hillah, Iraq.
For all the jubilation we've been seeing in Baghdad, there's also an undercurrent of anxiety when it comes to Iraq's humanitarian needs. Hospitals in the port city of Qasr, for example, have been without water for 4 days, and the city's reportedly been the scene of widespread looting. Today, an Iraqi opposition leader expressed his gratitude to the coalition, but also implored them to step up humanitarian efforts. The U.S. ambassador to Kuwait says the coalition is doing just that.
I think the security situation is well under control there, and I think that life is slowly getting back to normal. I visited a warehouse where they're distributing food from, and I talked with one of our civil affairs people, and he told me that they've already sort of self-organized. The people of Qasr have self-organized a town council, and they're working on tackling the issues for distribution of humanitarian aid and for standing up a new volunteer police force, things like that.
A Spanish flotilla hauling humanitarian aid did arrive in Qasr today, carrying 20 tons of food, blankets, and supplies. Coalition bombers are honing in on the northern front tonight, dropping loud reminders that there is still danger and more fighting ahead. Here is more from Brent Sadler, who is at the northern front in Kalar.
1338.
In the north of Iraq, a view to a kill. American special forces take aim at positions of Iraq's collapsing army.
Fire!
Holding a network of bunkers surrounded by palm trees. Iraqi troops blocking this road to Baghdad, 90 miles away.
Fire!
60mm mortars lay a barrage on those positions across the front line. The targets beat a hasty retreat. Iraqi soldiers jump into that white pickup truck to escape the onslaught. But Kurdish fighters wait to pounce and seize the moment. Pouring fire at the speeding truck as it runs a gauntlet of lead. The Peshmerga follow in hot pursuit, covering American bombs.
Fire!
The Kurds charge in, shooting at the backs of fleeing soldiers and clearing bunkers. The portraits and the power of Saddam Hussein are being torn to shreds. And the secrets of his disintegrating army are being exposed, hill by hill.
This is as far as the Peshmerga have pushed in 3 weeks as a result of heavy airstrikes from US aircraft. And today, for the first time, we saw that mortar fire from US Special Forces. Now moving forward, these Iraqi Kurds chasing the Iraqis who were just occupying this position a few minutes ago.
And another volley of gunfire.
This gives you a sense of what it's like at the very edge of a front line that's just fallen to these Iraqi Kurds. They know about the news in Baghdad, that the very grip of Saddam Hussein is being loosened by the hour, and they are ecstatic.
The war may not be over, but this battle has been fought and won. Not over, I can tell you that over the past several hours after sunset, there have been intense bombing raids against further frontline positions being held by the Iraqi army, not just in this location in the southeastern portion of the northern front, but in other areas around Kirkuk and Mosul. Special forces bringing in B-52 bombers and other strike aircraft from aircraft carriers operating in the eastern Mediterranean. What I can also tell you today is that in the 3 governorates of northern Iraq under Iraqi Kurdish control since the end of the Gulf War 12 years ago, there have been street protests, rather street celebrations, really marking the day that they believe that Saddam Hussein's regime has really been doomed to collapse. Iraqi Kurds have seen the television pictures of the demise of the regime in the Iraqi capital, and they turned out in their thousands in Duhok, Sulaymaniyah and Erbil, filling the streets, now knowing that after living in the shadow of Saddam Hussein for the past 12 years, they feel that all of Iraq now has a chance of living in freedom outside the tyrannical control of Saddam Hussein. Back to you, Paula.
Nevertheless, Brent, the Kurds you spoke with are expecting more fighting. Did they give you any sense of how long they think these kind of airstrikes will continue in this part of the country and the fighting will go on?
Well, clearly, Paula, the level of airstrikes I've seen over the past few hours has been the heaviest I've seen since the beginning of the war along this northern front. I think what we're going to see is a punch forward towards Baghdad. Baghdad's still about 90 miles away from the furthermost position. I think also you're going to see a lot of activity, as Donald Rumsfeld was just talking about in his briefing. Kirkuk, Mosul, Tikrit, still uncertain about their future. Mosul, Tikrit, still apparently under government control, the old central government control. And what about Tikrit? And more importantly, where could Saddam Hussein have run to if he was able to bolt from the Iraqi capital in the dying hours of his regime? The north is still a very big area, and very few eyes and ears of the US in any strength, military strength on the ground here. We may see armor and troops move up from the south. We may see elements of the 173rd Airborne Brigade, which has been arming with tanks and Bradley fighting vehicles over the past few days, moving from north to south, perhaps squeezing the remaining part of the country between those two moves. It's still too early to say. Paula.
Thanks so much, Brent. Brent Sadler reporting from the northern part of Iraq. And still to come tonight, the U.S. flag over the face of Saddam Hussein. That image was played over and over again on Arab television. Was it the wrong message? We'll be talking with someone from the Al Jazeera network at the half-hour mark. Also ahead, as Iraqis celebrate in the streets of Baghdad, do dangers remain for coalition troops in and around the Iraqi capital? There are some big challenges ahead, but next, where's Saddam Hussein? Our David Enzer tries to answer that question straight out of the break.
Business travel got you squeezed in? Don't downsize, Amerisize. Get more workspace in a spacious suite for the price of just a hotel room, plus our free bountiful breakfast buffet. AmeriSuites. Don't downsize, Amerisize.
What's so incredible?
This. The system must think I'm him.
Who?
Him.
Holy, that's all his stuff.
I can't believe we're in here.
Talk about your insider information.
Be cool. He can see us.
So...
Cover me. I'm going in.
Browser. Someone you never worry about when your systems are secure. Novell.
Business travel cramping your style? Don't downsize, Amerisize. Get a spacious suite for the price of just a hotel room, plus our free bountiful breakfast buffet. AmeriSuites. Don't downsize, Amerisize. Get triple miles and triple points, only with Prime Rewards.
Day 22, the fall of Saddam. CNN Tonight at 8. Paul Azan with Wolf Blitzer in Kuwait investigate what happens next. From who will rule Iraq to the search for POWs. Plus all the day's events live from the front lines. CNN Tonight, 8 Eastern.
Welcome back. With Iraqi citizens cheering in the streets, coalition forces pushing on with their war plan and disarray in Baghdad. One key question tonight remains, where is Saddam Hussein? National Security Correspondent David Enzer standing by and explains to us how that is nagging at U.S. officials.
As the regime appeared to go up in smoke, U.S. officials said its control in Baghdad has disintegrated. As for Saddam Hussein, officials still don't know his fate.
He's either dead, or he's incapacitated, or he's healthy and cowering in some tunnel someplace, trying to avoid being caught.
He is still important because there are people who will continue to fight as long as he is alive.
Rumors flew that Saddam might be in the Russian embassy in Baghdad. False, said the Russians, and U.S. officials too. It seemed clear after meetings at the White House that senior intelligence officials were pleased with the way things are going. But urgent tasks remain, including finding weapons of mass destruction, keeping any of them from moving out of the country. The U.S. is offering rewards and amnesty for help. U.S. intelligence must also account for all the members of the regime, the intelligence, the police, the Fedayeen Saddam that may still be alive, and figure out who in Iraq can be trusted. It is a mammoth task.
Vet Iraqi personnel, vet Iraqi bureaucrats, determine those who really do have enough blood on their hands that they probably should be excluded from a post-war administration, and those who can be brought back in and help to set up a new transitional authority to help to administer the country.
Then there are the neighbors to worry about. Secretary Rumsfeld complained about the role of Syria.
Senior regime people are moving out of Iraq into Syria, and Syria is continuing to send things into Iraq. We find it notably unhelpful.
U.S. officials say despite a lot of rumors, they have no solid information that any senior Iraqi official has entered Syria, though some of their families have. That border is being watched very closely by the U.S. And Paula, just to mention one other thing on the Saddam front, there was a report tonight on one network suggesting that Saddam had, that there was information that he had been eating in the restaurant next to the site that was bombed on Monday, that he escaped. His bodyguards pulled him out of the restaurant, and he went off in a car and then may have been attacked subsequently. Officials I spoke to just now said, that's just a rumor. We're not sure that's true. Paula?
What else are they saying, though, David, about the kind of investigation will be needed to prove that that's not true once they have access to this site where these bunker buster bombs hit?
Well, clearly the site will need to be taken apart bit by bit, and there'll need to be forensics done, DNA analysis possibly done on the remains of those who were at the site. But in addition to that, U.S. intelligence is making no assumption that that was a successful hit. They are pursuing a number of other ways to try and keep track of Saddam Hussein and the other leaders, his sons and the other leaders, in the event that they are still alive. They're making no assumption that he's dead at this point, Paula.
David Answer, thanks so much. So, Wolf, there are a number of theories tonight as to what happened to Saddam Hussein. You probably heard David just saying that one American television network reporting that he was eating at the restaurant nearby, whisked away by bodyguards. Not too sure what happened after that, but I understand you had a conversation with the head of the Iraqi National Congress, and he advanced a different theory. What did he tell you today?
Well, Ahmed Chalabi, the leader of the INC, is now in Nasiriyah in the southern part of Iraq with a few hundred of his supporters, the Free Iraqi Fighters, as they're called. When I interviewed him earlier today, he thought Saddam Hussein was definitely alive, someplace just north of Baghdad with at least one of his sons. He thought he had some good evidence to that, although the Pentagon and Central Command can't back that up by any means, but he seems to think that there's pretty good evidence Saddam is just outside Baghdad in one of the northern suburbs. We'll continue to watch that, see what else we get on that front. In the meantime, despite the falling statue and the raucous celebrations, U.S. military planners say the war is by no means over, at least not yet. The Defense Secretary, Donald Rumsfeld, said today, and I'm quoting, "There's a lot of fighting that's going to be done." CNN's Miles O'Brien is joining us now with a look at what's next for the coalition forces. Miles?
Wolf, these past 3 weeks we've heard a lot about Basra and Nasiriyah and, of course, Baghdad. Perhaps in the days ahead we're going to be hearing a little bit more about Tikrit and Kirkuk and Mosul. Joining me to talk a little bit about what is next and specifically what is going to be going on in the north of Iraq is General David Grange, retired U.S. Army. General Grange, I want to go right into a spot in the world right where Brent Sadler was. He just filed a report a few moments ago. It's a place called Kalar. This is in that area that is disputed between the Kurds and formerly the Saddam Hussein regime. That was an interesting report in that it showed the value of special forces. Explain how that works as a force multiplier, if you will.
Yeah, Miles, you had two, maybe more special forces operators working with the Kurdish fighters, trying to work out a plan of attack, supporting them with some very small weapons, but deadly weapons, but trying to coordinate how to take down this target. And it's very similar to how special operations worked in the first war. I can remember when a prince in Saudi Arabia in a northern base said, what can you bring to the fight? You only have a few people. What can you do for us? You have no tanks, artillery. I said, Prince, what we can bring to this fight is I have a radio. And that radio can bring in a lot of things in my hip pocket. B-52s, attack helicopters, jets, and also I have a lot of people that know how to fight wars.
All right,
and that did it, and that's what's happened here.
The radio may be powerful, but when you move toward Tikrit, and let's move our satellite imagery over there, earthviewer.com, from Kalar over to Tikrit. Tikrit, of course, is the hometown of Saddam Hussein, his tribe, his people, and we're going to zoom in on this compound of palaces that are maintained there. And that supposedly is defended by a special, a Republican Guard division, the Adnar division. Can walkie-talkies and a couple of special operations people take care of that?
No, because the special operations forces will not be taking Tikrit. Who will take Tikrit will be U.S. or other coalition forces, maneuver units, heavy units, supported by special forces and other special operations teams. But no, heavy forces will take down Tikrit.
All right, General David Grange, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Now we'll send it back to Wolf.
Thanks very much, Miles. Thanks to General Grange as well. Still to come this evening, a family separated by war in Iraq. A wife trying to make contact stateside with her husband who's back in Iraq. Also ahead, the French and the Germans were against this war. With the statue of Saddam Hussein now in pieces, what are they saying? But next, casualties of war, hospitals completely filled, the dire situation as CNN's special coverage of the war in Iraq continues.
CNN's continuing coverage of the war in Iraq. Baghdad has fallen. Symbols topple as the regime crumbles. Iraqi Americans celebrate and speak out. At 9 on Larry King Live, go inside the Iraqi capital on the day it appears Saddam Hussein's regime has officially become history. Stay with CNN, the most trusted name in news.
This year, explore a place in the heart of America. A place where you can sit outside and look at the stars. Or come inside and do the same. A place where getting high means a roller coaster ride. Or a walk on an Ozark mountaintop. A place of spectacular sights and smiles on faces you love. Where family values and the American spirit endure. It's called Branson, Missouri. And it's for everyone who wants to rediscover America.
This year, nearly 1 million families will have their most valuable possessions stolen right from here. It's their own identity. Bank statements, credit card and ATM receipts, pay stubs. In today's world, a little advice. Shred anything you wouldn't want in the hands of a stranger. Hey, Tom.
Protect yourself at home with the shredder more businesses rely on for superior performance and durability. Fellows, the world's toughest shredders.
CNN Tonight, Saddam's regime is coming down. We're live in the Iraqi capital and on the front lines. Only on Larry King Live, CNN Tonight, 9 Eastern.
So we're from Jersey, so you know I'm a big Sopranos fan.
Couldn't wait for the 2-hour premiere.
We got the popcorn all set, we got the soda, turn on the TV, got no TV. So I look outside, branches blew right into the signal.
Oh, I called the neighbors. I'm like, what did we miss? What did they just say? They're like, well, you had just got the dish installed. Aren't you watching? And I was like, no, we lost our picture.
That was the last straw. That's it. We're calling Comcast. We're getting our digital cable.
We're done with the dish.
We're done with the dish.
I never once felt under pressure to make my decision.
You want something that's going to last a long time. And so when he said 50 years, I thought that should do it.
They have the same philosophy as we do, high quality and giving the customer what they want.
And now when I stand back and look at the roof looks much better than I ever even anticipated that it would.
I think the roofs are just really elegant. I'm really pleased with them.
CNN, the most trusted name in news.
Welcome back. Right now, we want to give you the latest information on how many people have died in this war. U.S. officials say 101 Americans have been killed, 86 of them by hostile fire. 31 British personnel have died. Only 9 of those deaths were combat-related. Iraq has released no information about military deaths, but Iraqi officials reportedly told Abu Dhabi television that 1,252 civilians have been killed since the war started. Still to come this evening, Iraq's ambassador to the United Nations, Mohammed El-Duri. He's been the only Iraqi leader the world has been seeing over the past several days. Will he be their last man standing? The story tonight from our Richard Roth. But next, the killer illness SARS. More confirmed cases today in Florida. Our Elizabeth Cohen when we return.
Moving freely makes my spirits soar.
Discover new Flexium, a unique supplement for joint health.
I feel wonderfully carefree with less stiffness.
Flexium works in 2 ways. Only Flexium combines a patented form of SAMe to help ease pain from everyday activities, plus glucosamine to help renew cartilage. You can feel results in as little as 2 weeks. Feel the Flexium difference in your joints. Guaranteed.
It's easy to take electricity for granted. A lot of us aren't even sure where it comes from. So we're sometimes surprised to learn that over half of the electricity we use comes from coal.
Mrs. Windler!
And thanks to a $50 billion investment in clean coal technologies by America's electric utilities that use coal, it's getting cleaner every day, helping us protect something we can't take for granted: our environment.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Heidi Collins in the CNN newsroom. If you're just getting home, you have got to see this. In the heart of Baghdad, U.S. Marines helped jubilant Iraqis pull down a huge statue of Saddam Hussein today. Live from the front lines, we'll have more on today's developments in Baghdad in just a few minutes. Today's Iraq news is overshadowing an important health story, though. Today, doctors from the World Health Organization announced they are not optimistic about a quick eradication of severe acute respiratory syndrome, known as SARS. 2,722 cases of the disease have been confirmed worldwide now. 106 victims have died. SARS cases are rising in the United States as well, and now it is affecting children. CNN's medical correspondent Elizabeth Cohen joins us from Niceville on Florida's Gulf Coast. Some alarming news out of there today, Elizabeth.
Heidi, in the United States, 154 people are thought to have SARS. There have been no deaths. 11 of the cases have been in Florida, including the case of a 6-year-old boy who goes to Edge Elementary School, which is behind me. Now, it was a normal day here at Edge Elementary. They even had their scheduled field day. The principal said that even though the parents have known about this boy since yesterday, they did not keep their children out of class. Health and school officials told parents that the boy was at home when he was actually having symptoms, which is when it's thought that people with SARS are the most contagious. School and health officials are telling parents, watch out for the symptoms of SARS in your children, a fever and respiratory problems. Also, in other Florida SARS news, State Department of Health officials announced today that in at least one case, someone with SARS gave it to their coworker. Now, that's very interesting because the Centers for Disease Control has been saying that that's not happened before. What they've said is that SARS cases have only been among travelers or among people who live in the same house as those travelers or among doctors and nurses who have taken care of those people with SARS. So this could be a new category of transmission. It is important to note that SARS has not been a highly contagious disease in the United States. Heidi?
All right, Elizabeth Cohen from Niceville, Florida tonight. Thank you. And speaking of travelers, the airline industry is caught between the war in Iraq and fears about severe acute respiratory syndrome. Industry officials say passenger traffic is dropping steadily, down more than 17% from this same time last year. Meanwhile, Congress is working on an airline aid package. In our next half hour now, did the Marines send the wrong message? We'll get the Arab world's reaction to seeing the U.S. flag draped over Saddam Hussein's statue today before the Iraqi flag replaced it. An Iraqi American who still has family in Baghdad talks to us about today's incredible events, and we'll take you to a place where humanitarian aid cannot arrive soon enough.
Hello? It's Dr. Ross. I have your colon polyp test results. You're fine.
Help stay that way with new Caltrate Colon Health. You may help reduce the risk of recurrent colon polyps, a colon cancer risk factor. Don't wait. Take new Caltrate Colon Health.
CNN Tonight. Join Paula Zahn with Wolf Blitzer at 8, Larry King Live at 9, and Newsnight with Aaron Brown at 10. Stay with CNN, the most trusted name in news.
Thinking about buying a dish? Well, this is what can happen when it rains. This is what can happen when it snows. This is what can happen when the wind blows too hard. Sometimes this is what can happen for what seems like no reason at all. Get the picture? Satellite TV isn't all it's dished up to be.
So we're from Jersey, so you know I'm a big Sopranos fan.
Couldn't wait for the 2-hour premiere.
We got the popcorn all set, we got the soda, turn on the TV, got no TV. So I look outside, branches blew right into the signal.
Oh, I called the neighbors. I'm like, what did we miss? What did they just say? They're like, well, you had just got the dish installed. Aren't you watching? And I was like, no, we lost our picture.
That was the last straw. That's it. We're calling Comcast. We're getting our digital cable.
We're done with the dish.
We're done with the dish.
CNN, the most trusted name in news.
Welcome back to our special coverage. The shot of that flag-covered statue in Baghdad looked the same to Americans as it did to viewers in the Arab world. Yet, like so many other stories about this war, the context in which people saw it varied dramatically. CNN's Bruce Burkhart now on the different perceptions of this extraordinary day.
What a difference a day makes. Yesterday, the airwaves full of injured and outraged journalists who felt they had been targeted by U.S. forces. But in a war of conflicting images, this was the dominant one today, not just in the U.S., but in all the Arab networks as well. When the tanks rolled into central Baghdad, the cameras captured joyous Iraqis teaming up with Marines to bring down a statue of Saddam Hussein. And then this brief moment when a Marine draped the American flag over the head of Saddam.
And just such a picture might send a wrong picture to the Iraqis, to the Arabs watching now. This statue can change into an American statue in the symbolic way. Symbolic way. That dictatorship and power becomes American instead of Iraqi.
And on another network, Al Jazeera.
This is the symbolism of what's going on in Iraq. Everything will become with an American face.
Almost as quickly as that symbolism was noted, another symbolic act, the U.S. flag coming down, and in its stead, the Iraqi flag.
Well, finally we see an Iraqi flag that might, maybe this understood between American and Iraqis. There's no way that the U.S. Flag should be raised. Now, even the same U.S. soldier has carrying the Iraqi flag. That's some sort of correcting the mistake that he has done.
And when the statue was finally toppled,
the statue falls down. The people here are expressing their relief, their feelings of joy, as we can see.
What about that joy that we saw today? How did Arab broadcasters react to that? In this exchange, an anchor asked the reporter in Baghdad if the jubilation is genuine. The reporter's answer, yes, it is real, but we don't know if that joy is just for Saddam leaving and not for the Americans. One recurring theme raised in the Arab coverage, surprise over so little resistance to the Americans. What happened to the Iraqi army, they wanted to know. Finally, this telling moment, an Al Jazeera reporter interviewing a Marine. And according to our translators who've been closely watching the Arab networks, this reporter's demeanor was clearly different today, happier, relieved. So much so he felt it necessary to point out that he was not with the Marines, but only a neutral observer. And then this lighter moment when the Marine tells him he's from North Carolina.
I am from North Carolina. You don't look like one of the white or redneck.
Some weird moments out of the so-called fog of war. Bruce Burkhardt, CNN.
And today, the Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld lashed out at the Arab news media for their coverage of the war in general.
There's no question but that there are a number of particularly television stations as well as print in that part of the world that have carried a message that was false. They've carried a message that tried to lead people in that part of the world to believe that we were fighting Iraq and the Iraqi people as opposed to a vicious dictator, that we were anti-religion, which is totally untrue. But that's going to be counterbalanced with the faces of people who are free, and the test is in the tasting.
So does the Defense Secretary have a point, or have the Arab news media been totally unbiased? Joining us now, Hafez El-Mirazi. He's the Washington Bureau Chief for Al Jazeera. Hafez, thanks once again for joining us. Well, what do you say about what the Secretary of Defense just said?
Well, the Secretary is entitled to his opinion. I would appreciate if your people would help me with the mix minus from the earpiece. But I would like to say that, of course, the Secretary has been critical in many instances before for the media, especially the Arab media. And we have witnessed that also after 9/11 in the war in Afghanistan, when the Arab media put out the casualties and he considered that propaganda. And that's understandable, as they say in bureaucratic politics, where you sit is where you stand. Also, the Secretary of Defense also used before language that was not received well in the Arab world. Things like the so-called occupied territories concerning the Israeli occupied territories which is contrary to the language of the president and the U.S. institutions. So I wouldn't stop too much at what he said.
Well, what about the shift, though? Is there a shift in attitudes now that there are all these Iraqis who are coming out, welcoming the U.S. Marines, the soldiers, praising President Bush? Do you believe that will have an impact on media coverage in the Arab world?
For sure, Wolf. It would have an impact because people react to images and footage in front of them in TV. When you have a very friendly confrontation or engagement, as you showed before, between Al Jazeera reporter and an interview with the Marines, and both of them working together in a non-hostile environment, that would be reflected and given a real message to the viewers to go hand in hand with the U.S. rhetoric that we are there not as occupiers, we are not dealing with the Iraqi people in any way to humiliate them. But when one day before, when people watched one of Al Jazeera reporter being killed by a U.S. missile, that would give a different message. Also today, I had for 2 hours live show from Washington. 1 hour was for call-in for the Arab community here in Washington, in the U.S. How do they react to what is going on? And in general, you would find people are not happy with the war. They didn't like to see what the casualty on the Iraqi side, the casualty on the American side, because they are mostly Arab Americans. But on the main side, they are relieved because this is the end of a dictatorship in the Arab world. And most of them would say, we hope that the other authoritarian regimes in the Middle East would learn the lesson and do something and reconcile with their own people before they face the fate of Saddam Hussein.
Hafez, our condolences to you and everyone at Al Jazeera on the death of Tariq Ayoub, your correspondent in Baghdad. But do you really believe that the United States military deliberately decided to target him and Al Jazeera, or was that an accident of war?
Well, thank you, Wolf, and I'd like also to thank Christiane Amanpour in particular, because she, in her comments yesterday, it was very brave and a very objective one about that what we heard so far and what we heard yesterday of justifications from the Central Command or the Pentagon was not convincing enough for people to say that you're really avoiding schools or mosques, and yet you're not avoiding dealing in a disproportionate way with some gunshots from a hotel where you know that all of the international media were there. Whether it's deliberate or not, I would really, on my personal level and view, you cannot say that someone in a democracy would really dare to take into their hands to deliberately target a journalist. But the problem is that they dealt with the journalists the same way, unfortunately, the civilians have been dealt with. Too bad that they are in our way, as long as that we would like to do our objective. Just dealing with them as a collateral damage, and it doesn't matter what would happen to them.
Unfortunately, we have to leave it right there. Hafez El-Mirazi, the Washington bureau chief of Al Jazeera, who's been a frequent guest here on CNN. Thanks very much, Hafez, for your assessment. Paula, let me throw it back to you.
Thanks, Wolf. And still to come in this hour, water, a once scarce resource, now flowing by the gallon, even in small towns throughout Iraq. We're going to take you one town that's beginning to taste the first drops of freedom. But next, separated by war, one family's plight to stay together through sickness and war, when Live from the Front Lines continues.
CNN's continuing coverage of the war in Iraq. Baghdad has fallen. Symbols topple as the regime crumbles. Iraqi Americans celebrate and speak out. At 9 on Larry King Live, go inside the Iraqi capital on the day it appears Saddam Hussein's regime has officially become history. Stay with CNN, the most trusted name in news.
God of wonders beyond our galaxy.
Experience the power. It's the new sound of worship. Presenting Worship Together on 2 CDs or cassettes for just $19.99. wait. Call with your credit card and we'll cut the price in half. That's right. You get 2 albums for just $9.99.
I can only imagine.
Then audition other Worship Together albums. Satisfaction guaranteed. So call now and get 2 powerful albums for just $9.99.
Use your credit card and call 1-800-961-9779 to order Worship Together for just $9.99 plus shipping, or send $19.99 plus shipping to the address on your screen, or go to timelife.com.
Closed captioning provided by Auric 8-pound upright vacuum.
Looking for a lightweight vacuum that's really powerful? Try my Auric XL free for 30 days. Nothing gets by an Auric.
Mark on 1! Cut! Fire! Fire!
Welcome back. Iraq's ambassador to the United Nations, Mohammed Al-Douri, spoke out strongly today about the war. Our senior UN correspondent, Richard Roth, is here to tell us exactly what he said. Good evening, Richard.
Good evening, Paula. Mohammed Al-Douri has been Iraq's staunchest defender inside the United States, representing his government at the United Nations. And today, watching the pictures coming in from Baghdad and certainly assessing the political terrain, he put it rather bluntly when asked to give his view of the images and the political situation back home.
The game is over. I hope the peace will prevail, and with the Iraqi people at the end of the day will have a peaceful life.
What do you mean that the game is over, sir?
The war, I mean.
So you're convinced the war is over?
Yeah.
What is the situation with Saddam Hussein?
Well, I don't know. This is perhaps the American knows. I have no relationship with Saddam, so I can't tell you. I am here like you.
Explain to me, sir, what do you mean you have no relationship with Saddam? What does that mean?
No, I have no communication with Iraq. I am here, so I know nothing about what is going there.
What do you make, sir, of the pictures you've seen of?
The Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld said it wasn't a game when asked about Al-Douri's comments. He said the game was over when President Saddam Hussein didn't accept the UN resolutions. I asked some of the Iraqi ambassador's diplomatic colleagues about his assessment that the game is over.
I just heard that. I think it is, and I pay tribute to him for acknowledging it. He's a decent man, and I hope he finds a decent life representing a decent government. But he must wonder what his situation is now, and I sympathize with him.
He defended the positions of his country with courage, I would say. But of course, he was defending a very bad cause. He was defending a regime which had been condemned by the United Nations and which expressed the worst kind of violation of human rights and of brutality in the region. Therefore, he had a difficult task. I hope him well.
Mohammed Al-Douri will be the last UN representative of the Saddam Hussein government, but his seat and even himself, if he wanted to, could stay here for days, months as Iraq's ambassador, Paula, because there's a diplomatic process that has to take hold. A new government in Iraq, when that eventually is in place, would request through a letter applications for new credentials for a new ambassador. Paula.
So, Richard, did he have, or has he had over the last couple of days, any explanation for what happened to the much vaunted Republican Guard?
No. When I rode with him in his car yesterday to the UN, he asked me that. We were analyzing the situation, and he said, "Where are they? Where did they go?" He was hinting that the war would still continue in other parts. He said yesterday his people would never accept, quote, foreigners, not for 1 second. That's what Al-Douri said yesterday. Today, he is saying the game is over.
Richard Roth, thanks so much for the update. Now, many Iraqis are feeling a mixture of triumph and uncertainty right now. The taking of Baghdad by coalition forces signals a definite change in the war. And for an Iraqi woman in this country, it is bringing some renewed hope for a reunion. Siba Habib left her family in Iraq just before the war started to get medical treatment for her young son. He suffers from glaucoma.
The pressure is high for both sides, and it's very dangerous. He might be blind if I didn't give him treatment. It's very hard for me, but my husband was forced me. You must go for your son. I don't know, maybe they were losing their life. I'm very afraid about them.
Khalid Al-Casey is Habib's cousin. He joins us from Cleveland, Ohio, to tell us how the family is doing. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Khalid.
You're welcome.
First off tonight, what did the tearing down of that enormous statue of Saddam Hussein represent to your family?
It represents the moment they've been waiting for the past 35 years. It was joy, happiness, everybody was happy and cheering. They were cheering with the Iraqi people that were over there cheering for their freedom.
We heard, though, that there were people in this crowd who felt quite humiliated by what they were witnessing. Do you understand those feelings?
You mean the flag?
Not that so much that, but just some Iraqi citizens standing on the sidelines, not sure how this is going to play out.
Oh, no. I think those people are very happy. They're very excited. The only thing is, nothing is 100% done yet, and nobody has confirmed that Saddam has been taken care of. That's why they have some doubts. That's the only reason that they didn't participate.
Tell us a little bit more about Siba and how today's seminal moment might affect her and a possible reunion with her family back in Iraq.
Siba, for the past 2 weeks, she's been very tense, upset, agile, and I understand exactly how she's feeling because she has family over there, immediate family over there. But today is the first day that I saw the happiness in her eyes. She was smiling, she was laughing, she was very happy, and hopefully the moment will be soon when her son will get the right treatment and she'll get rejoined with her husband and her other son back in Baghdad.
Has she had any contact with her husband or the rest of the family?
Not in the past 2 weeks. Before 2 weeks ago, she called after the bombing had started, and she talked to her husband, Muhannad, and everything was fine. He was okay. But up to 2 weeks ago, there was no communication between. Communication was cut, so she doesn't really know how is he doing or anything about him. But we hope that he's doing okay.
Finally tonight, Khalid, we wanted to close with a shot that has been highly inflammatory in the Arab world, and that was the shot of a Marine covering the head of the statue of Saddam Hussein with an American flag. Do you understand why that engendered such a strong response, even from people who are happy to see Saddam Hussein go and not convinced of what the ultimate role might be of the U.S. in all of this?
Right. I think it's a spur of the moment thing that happened, and I don't think it's not big of a deal. It's something that just happened sporadically, and then right after that they took down the flag and they brought the Iraqi flag, the old Iraqi flag, and everything was okay after that. It's real. I don't, as an Iraqi American, I don't see it as a big deal.
All right, Khalid. Well, we appreciate your sharing your family story with us tonight, and we wish Siba and her young son the best of luck and hope he gets the medical care he needs. Good luck. And back to Wolf now.
I do as well, Paula. Thank you very much. And one of the top priorities for coalition forces is winning the confidence of Iraqi civilians. Sometimes all it takes is a friendly smile and a wave of the hand. But in the southern Iraqi town of Safwan, something more is needed. Correspondent Alistair Jackson of Britain's ITV shows us what it is.
On the streets of Safwan, this is how you win people over. There's no water supply here, but the RAF regiment has brought with it thousands of gallons.
We can only try and address a short-term need, and that's what we're doing here. We believe that the most important thing is to try to identify what that need is. It's clearly water around here.
This delivery of water happens here each day. It's vital for the people that live here, but also for the British troops. It means that they're welcomed here without question. This is a poor place, but much is already being learnt from it. When the military first arrived here, there was some hostility. Now the helmets have come off and support appears to be growing.
We want anyone come here, huh? Because we want to live, you know?
The translator can also tell his own story, an Iraqi exiled to America who will now never forget the day he came home.
Since I left my country, which is in 1991,
it was a dream. I'm going back to Iraq again. I'm back. I'm here. I'm between my people right now.
Safwan has no electricity and its future seems uncertain. At the moment, much is being asked of the British presence here, but already they're getting ready to leave. In Safwan, the fighting has finished, but the people here have many questions about what happens next. Alistair Jackson, ITV News in Iraq.
This year, nearly 1 million families will have their most valuable possessions stolen right from here. It's their own identity. Bank statements, credit card and ATM receipts, pay stubs. In today's world, a little advice. Shred anything you wouldn't want in the hands of a stranger. Hey, Tom.
Protect yourself at home with the shredder more businesses rely on for superior performance and durability. Fellows, the world's toughest shredders.
I think I'll try this create your own pasta with bow tie pasta, broccoli, and Alfredo sauce.
Not bad. You'd make a great chef.
Thanks.
Hey. You get to pick the ingredients, but we still do the cooking.
Introducing Create Your Own Pasta. You can create your own unique dish by choosing your favorite pasta, sauce, and extras starting from $7.99. Romano's Macaroni Grill, making life delicious.
So many powerful images came out of the war today. The fall of Saddam's statue, Iraqis cheering in the streets, Iraqis beating Saddam's pictures with their shoes. You would think of all the countries that argued against the war in Iraq might be changing their tunes, or are they? Here's Robin Oakley with a look at some of the world reaction.
As America's closest ally in the Iraqi war, Tony Blair was said to be delighted at the pictures coming out of Baghdad. We're all watching these images, said his Downing Street spokesman. People have seen today the scales of fear falling from the people of Iraq. But as London's evening newspapers celebrated the toppling of Saddam, the UK Prime Minister was guarded, counselling that the war was not over yet and that victory would only come when substantial parts of Iraq were free from violence. In Parliament earlier, Conservative opposition leader Ian Duncan Smith had been generous with his praise for Blair and for the coalition forces.
This has been one of the most brilliantly executed campaigns of recent history. I congratulate the Prime Minister, and I'd like to take this opportunity to do so, for the role that he has played, standing together with our American allies, liberating the Iraqi people and ousting this evil dictator.
When Mr. Duncan Smith asked who now could make a surrender on behalf of the Iraqis, Mr. Blair was again cautious.
It is extremely difficult as we speak to know what is left of the governing higher ranks of Saddam's regime.
As the Baghdad pictures flashed across the world's TV screens, Europe's politicians, many of whom had opposed the war against a background of street protests in their countries, didn't rush to comment. But Germany's Chancellor Schröder, who's fallen out badly with Washington over Iraq, welcomed the sights from Baghdad as a sign that the conflict could soon be over. Chancellor Schröder is due to meet with fellow war opponents President Vladimir Putin of Russia and President Jacques Chirac of France in St. Petersburg at the weekend. Their discussions, like those of Tony Blair and President George Bush in Belfast, Northern Ireland this week, are likely to focus on the post-conflict phase in Iraq and just how much of a role the United Nations will play. Bush and Blair agree the need for a vital role for the UN. Schröder and Chirac are insisting that the UN's role must be a central one. That may not prove to be the same thing. Robin Oakley, CNN, London.
And coming up in our next hour, what happens next now that Iraq's government has symbolically fallen apart? Who will fill the power vacuum? As our coverage of the war in Iraq continues, we'll be right back. Good evening, everyone. I'm Heidi Collins at CNN Center with a check of the headlines at this hour. The big news today, the fall of Baghdad. But some Baghdad residents have begun looting offices of Iraq's totalitarian government. U.S. troops, meanwhile, report they are still meeting scattered resistance. But for the most part, their arrival and Saddam Hussein's apparent departure seem to be getting quite a warm welcome. A timeline of all of today's major events in Iraq is just about a minute away. In Swampscott, Massachusetts today, they mourned the first American journalist to lose his life covering the war in Iraq. Michael Kelly was a columnist for the Washington Post and editor-at-large for the Atlantic Monthly. He died Friday when the Humvee he was in plunged into a canal. To other news now, the war and fears about SARS, or severe acute respiratory syndrome, continue to trouble the nation's airlines. The industry lobbying group reports traffic is down now more than 25% from last year along the Atlantic and Pacific routes. A document found at the Rhode Island nightclub that burned down in February suggests the club had overstated its capacity. That's according to lawyers for some of the victims and their families. The document lists club capacity at 550, well over the town's cap of 404. 99 people were killed in the fire. We'll take a quick break for now and then come back with more of CNN's continuing coverage of the war in Iraq.
Miles O'Brien takes you inside the war in Iraq.
A zone of control around Baghdad. You realize that this rather significant Special Forces operation has come of age.
Miles O'Brien, experience you can trust only on CNN. CNN Tonight, Saddam's regime is coming down. We're live in the Iraqi capital and on the front lines. Only on Larry King Live, CNN Tonight, 9 Eastern.
Okay, let's compare our favorite cars. I like this one.
It doesn't have split rear seats. That's an option here, but a standard option there.
VIX.com isn't the only way to compare cars side by side.
What's a standard option?
Just the smartest.
Does that have the 6-cylinder engine?
Where does it talk about the engine?
Those would be my jeans.
VIX.com, roadmap to the automotive world.
Thinking about buying a dish? Well, this is what can happen when it rains. This is what can happen when it snows. This is what can happen when the wind blows too hard. Sometimes this is what can happen for what seems like no reason at all. Get the picture? Satellite TV isn't all it's dished up to be.
CNN, the most trusted name in news.
Live from the front lines, the timeline that created today's headlines. Tonight, how the day unfolded on the war front.
We're seeing history unfold, events that will shape the course of a country, the fate of a people, and potentially the future of the region.
Jubilation in Baghdad. A similar scene half a world away. Iraqis at home and abroad celebrate the end of a brutal era. But back in Iraq, joy gives way to chaos as wide-scale looting takes hold.
This is all out, complete engagement here. We've got mortar fire, heavy machine guns. Fires are now burning on the campus. This is Baghdad University, and it is warfare on this campus at this moment.
And the fighting's not over. In Baghdad, a university turns into a battlefield. CNN's Martin Savage takes you there. Live from the front lines, Day 22.
And right now you're looking at a live picture of Baghdad, a city mostly in the hands of U.S. forces. The Iraqi capital today was the scene of spontaneous celebrations, and in some cases, some described it as anarchy. Over the next half hour, we're going to look at the timeline of events that got us to this point. Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Paula Zahn in New York.
And good evening, Paula. I'm Wolf Blitzer in Kuwait City. Also this hour, we'll take a close look at the future of Iraq. What's next now that the regime of Saddam Hussein is apparently no more? Today's dramatic developments began unfolding in the overnight hours while most of America slept. CNN's Walter Rogers reported what he was hearing, that the majority of Iraqi troops in Baghdad had given up the fight.
Within the next 24 hours, the United States Army and Marines are expected to double the amount of real estate they now control in the Iraqi capital, Baghdad. There are indications of another brigade of U.S. Army forces moving into the city, as well as link-ups between the 2nd Brigade, 3rd Infantry Division, and the U.S. Marines already in Baghdad. Having said that, overnight, a U.S. Army officer told us of senior rank that it appears that the majority of Iraqi forces in Baghdad have given up. That does not mean they've surrendered. It does mean, however, they've deserted and gone to ground. There are intelligence reports suggesting there are some Fedayeen units now which have embedded themselves, integrated themselves into civilian neighborhoods around Baghdad, and it's anticipated there will still be attempts by these Fedayeen and paramilitary groups to ambush any U.S. forces coming into the city, the aim being, of course, on the part of the remaining Iraqis to draw American blood.
And then with Iraqi security forces vanished from the streets of Baghdad, looting broke out around 4 a.m. Eastern time. Many Iraqis descended on deserted government ministries, police stations, and military posts. Dozens of people were seen carting away furniture, fixtures, other office supplies. Some even used pickup trucks for their loot. A senior U.S. general said that while he is concerned about the looting, it's largely an outgrowth of the jubilation.
Much of Iraq is free from years of oppression. Televisions across the world today are filled with images of jubilant Iraqis who know the regime is coming to an end. There is still work to be done, and the coalition remains confident of the outcome. In the course of the campaign, young men and women have sacrificed their lives for this cause, and we continue to remember them.
While looting was on the upswing in Baghdad, it appeared to be on the decline in Basra after many stories confirming the fact that looters had stolen large quantities of food to sell on the black market. Then at 8 a.m. Eastern Time, Basra was reported calm following 2 days of that kind of looting. British forces in control of the southern city are turning their attention to its pressing humanitarian needs. Observers say there is much work to be done. The city's main hospital is filled with patients wounded in this past weekend's fighting, and just 1/3 of its doctors showed up for work today. Wolf?
Thanks, Paula. Despite the collapse of Saddam Hussein's regime, pockets of resistance remain. CNN's Martin Savage was with a U.S. Marine battalion at about 9 a.m. Eastern when it suddenly came under heavy fire in Baghdad.
For the 1st Battalion, 7th Marines, the road into Baghdad was paved with cheers, waves, and smiles. For the young Marines who battled for 3 weeks to reach the capital, it was a moment to savor. But not everyone in the city apparently welcomed their presence. Photographer Scott McWhinney was riding with a lead assault team crossing over the Tigris River when an Iraqi gunboat down below suddenly opened fire. The Marines immediately returned fire, pointing their machine guns into the water below, silencing the attack. Moments later, the trailing convoy began taking fire from the campus of Baghdad University. Machine gun rounds and rocket-propelled grenades were striking at the armored column. Infantry scattered to take cover and begin organizing a counterattack, supported by armored personnel carriers and tanks. At one point, an APC acted as a battering ram, punching through an outer wall, allowing the Marines to move in. From the tall grass surrounding the campus, they organized firing teams of machine guns, the Iraqi opposition hitting them from several different buildings. With disciplined bursts, the fire teams took on their targets. High on their lists, pickup trucks armed with machine guns. One after another, they were destroyed. In the words of commanders, this was a full-on fight. But as big as it looked, the engagement was limited only to the campus. While Iraqis celebrated only blocks away, these young Marines were involved in the fight of their lives. The battle reached its peak when the fighting ignited a huge storage of anti-aircraft ammunition, touching off a deadly firestorm. Eventually, all of it stopped, and the Marines moved in to check their kills. Some clearly wondering if they might have just taken part in the last battle for Baghdad. Martin Savage, CNN, with the 1st Battalion, 7th Marines, Baghdad.
And then during the 9 a.m. hour Eastern time, we heard about celebrations in northern Iraq. There was joy in Erbil, the administrative capital of the Iraqi Kurds. People danced in the streets, waved flags, honked car horns to show their delight over the day's developments. Pictures of Saddam Hussein were slashed and burned. Despite those festivities, there was continued fighting in some parts of northern Iraq. The Associated Press reported that U.S. and Kurdish forces captured a radar and communications center 10 miles northeast of Mosul, the largest city still under the regime's control. Wolf?
Thanks, Paula. After the break, we'll pick up our timeline in the 10 a.m. hour, an image to last a lifetime. Baghdad falls into coalition hands as a symbol of Saddam Hussein's power falls to the ground. Plus, voices of celebration weren't limited to Iraq. CNN's Jamie Colby is live now from Dearborn, Michigan. With
2,000 Iraqis here in Michigan have their own day-long celebration. We'll have that when the timeline continues next.
So Al, you saw the defendant make a call without using 10-10-220.
Right before my eyes. It was horrible!
Is that really a crime?
It should be!
On what grounds?
Oh, come on. 10-10-220 is 99 cents for all calls up to 20 minutes.
That's really cheap. And there's no monthly commitment. I didn't know.
Ignorance is no excuse.
Tell him, Alf.
I just did.
Case closed.
What a weird dream.
Dial 10-10-220, then 1 and the number.
It's the real thing. That's the way it should be. Advertising what the world wants to see. Oh, yeah. It's the real thing.
The power of trust. America's most credible news source, year after year. The power of pictures. Images live the instant the story happens. The power of reporting. More bureaus than any U.S. television news organization. The power of CNN. The most trusted name in news.
Obviously, Wolf didn't know he was on the air there, so I'll pick up from there. In Baghdad today at 10 a.m. Eastern time, the city explodes in celebration. U.S. officials say there is no sign of Saddam's regime remaining in the capital. Around the city, statues of the leader were toppled, much like his control of the country. A look now at how the fall of Baghdad unfolded.
Taking a little while, but we're here now.
نقلت جنود عرب قال جابر منذ قليل انها ساحه الفردوس.
Glad to be here, helping out the people of Iraq, helping liberate Iraq. It feels good to come in here and see everyone waving to us, and we're glad to do our job and be here and help all these people out.
مدينة. إذا حضرة العميد أنت معنا.
I am very happy. I am very happy to see this.
Saddam's regime is coming to an end. Very, very, very happy. Very happy.
أن تكون الأجيال القادمة من الجنوب هي التي ستقوم بإضراب الطوق.
فها هي هذا السيناريو ينعكس وهو ما يثير الدهشة أن المحافظات الأخرى قدمت الآن يصبح معقولا وربما مفهوما، والجميع الآن يترقب. أكيد الحبيب أن هناك مناطق عديدة توجد فيها بعض المقاومات، ولكن لا يوجد شكل منظم لهذه.
This was not the picture the Pentagon wanted to see.
And about an hour after those celebrations erupted in Baghdad, there was a similar reaction in an American city. Jamie Colby reports on the hundreds who gathered in the heart of the Arab American community to celebrate the fall of Baghdad. Good evening, Jamie.
Paula, good evening. And right now the crowd has left, but I would guess there may have been as many as 1,000 people here. Dearborn is a suburb of Detroit. It is the largest concentration of Iraqis in the U.S. Today they hit the streets celebrating what they're calling their victory and the victory of those they left behind. Many escaped the regime and they are here enjoying life in America. Now they're excited that the freedoms will be shared by family and friends back home. They honked their horns in the streets. Within minutes of hearing of the news of the toppling of the regime, they also assembled in front of the mosque here in town. Also, as those first pictures came through, they say they celebrated the first taste of freedom that they had waited 35 years to savor.
We are 4 million Iraqis in exile. 2 million Iraqis got killed by Saddam. Hundreds of thousands of men and women and children in the prison. So what do you expect? It is a celebration. Thanks God.
We're happy that Saddam Hussein is gone and the children are having peace.
It's a beautiful day. No, it's not for me, for all Iraqi guys, for all the world.
And Paula, they say, many of them, that they will go back to see family and friends. Some of the people involved with that mosque are going back to help with the new government. They have plans to be as helpful as they can. They want to share the freedoms they have here. And today at the rally that they had here at this park, some of the people took a last parting shot at Saddam.
I wish he's not dead so I can kill him again. And so I can see him actually dead. That's why I like to see him.
And as we saw, Paul, in Southern California today as well, lots of celebration, a feeling of joy and relief. Many here in Dearborn say they were glued to their television sets watching the developments. They have thanks for the U.S. government, for the coalition forces, and for all the soldiers who gave them this day that they've waited so long to have. Paula?
Jamie Colby reporting from Dearborn, Michigan tonight. Thank you so much. And a little bit later on in our next half hour, we will be meeting more Iraqi Americans to get their reaction to the day's events. Let's go back to Wolf now in Kuwait City.
Thanks, Paula. In the 2 o'clock hour, the Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld issues a warning. The war is far from over. Rumsfeld said at the Pentagon that while the tide is turning in Iraq, there will be more fighting and more people killed before victory can be declared. More now from Donald Rumsfeld.
We still must capture, account for, or otherwise deal with Saddam Hussein and his sons and the senior Iraqi leadership. We still must find and ensure the safe return of prisoners of war, those captured in this war as well as any still held from the last Gulf War, Americans and other nationals.
And when we come back, our timeline will pick up in the 5 o'clock hour at the White House.
He walked out, saw it on the ground, and exclaimed, "They got it down."
We're going to tell you how the president reacted to today's news, plus a look at what is happening right now in Iraq. We're going to wrap up our timeline with a live report from Baghdad. Please stay with us.
CNN's continuing coverage of the war in Iraq. Celebrations in Baghdad, but pockets of fighting and chaos continue to rage. At 10, Aaron Brown brings you dramatic images from the Iraqi capital and eyewitnesses to the fall of Saddam Hussein's regime. Who will run Iraq now? Stay with CNN, the most trusted name in news.
Even in the beginning, we were building some of the most technologically advanced cars in the world.
We still are.
In a world of computer confusion, 3 young interns will soon learn there's one place with all the answers. A place where you can get a PC made just for you at a price that's right for you. A place where computer confusion has met its match.
Thanks for calling Dell. What can I build for you today?
Get ready. Dell presents The Interns.
So, what do you think of my movie?
Well, that's one way to make an intern training video.
Now you can get a Dimension desktop with an Intel Pentium 4 processor for just $5.99 after mail-in rebate. And right now, for a limited time, you'll get free shipping. Visit our website for even more great offers. And check out our notebooks, too. You're not just getting a great deal, you're getting a Dell.
Darren, about my close-ups, there could be more of them.
Rated E for easy. Easy as Dell. Dell PCs use Intel Pentium 4 processors. CNN tomorrow, the next phase of the battle for Baghdad. What dangers remain and who will rebuild Iraq? American Morning with Paul Azan. CNN tomorrow, 8 Eastern.
It's more than what lies on the surface that makes a kitchen functional and beautiful. It's the careful attention to design, materials, and craftsmanship that truly sets a kitchen apart. At International Kitchens, each cabinet is built to order, designed around your needs and lifestyle. Now enjoy additional savings during International Kitchens' 25th anniversary celebration sale. Get reduced prices on luxurious Merit and Crystal custom cabinets. Visit International Kitchens today in Bellevue on Bellred Road or Seattle at 2nd and Vine.
The Rainier Automotive Group is proud to present Eastside Subaru in Kirkland. We're still getting new Subarus every day, so now our selection is bigger and better than ever before. Come in today for huge savings, low interest rates, and top dollar for your trade. We'll even throw in lifetime oil changes from our state-of-the-art parts and service department. Eastside Subaru in Kirkland, guaranteed to make you smile. Eastside Subaru! Part of the Rainier Automotive Group.
CNN, the most trusted name in news.
We pick up our timeline at 5 p.m. Eastern at the White House, where today's events in Baghdad were viewed with a sense of caution. Still, the president's chief spokesman called it an historic moment. More now from senior White House correspondent John King.
A powerful snapshot, but with the celebration came a challenge for a White House determined to make clear down does not mean out, and that the war is hardly over.
There may well be hard fighting yet ahead. Regime forces are still in control in northern Iraq, in Mosul, and Kirkuk, and Tikrit.
Yet with the caution came a small dose of "we told you so."
In the early days of the war, the plan was criticized by some retired military officers embedded in TV studios. But with every day and every advance by our coalition forces, the wisdom of that plan becomes more apparent.
As the troops press on, the administration is accelerating planning for post-war Iraq. Retired Army General Jay Garner leads the civil authority that will move in soon and run key services until power can be handed over to a new interim Iraqi authority. The administration blueprint still has no firm timetable for getting the interim authority up and running, but planning meetings in southern Iraq will begin as early as next week, involving a mix of indigenous Iraqis and exiles and dissidents now returning home, with General Tommy Franks in charge of the invitations. The hope is with Saddam Hussein out of the picture, local leaders will naturally emerge to help shape the new authority.
The president has very high levels of faith in the ability of the Iraqi people to govern themselves and make these decisions for themselves.
Iraqi National Congress leader Ahmed Chalabi is a favorite of many top Bush advisors and will be among those invited to post-war planning sessions. But his complaints that the administration is moving too slowly with reconstruction efforts have annoyed even some of his top administration supporters. And officials stress he is but one of many voices in the post-war political debate. The president watched some of the coverage today of the dramatic moments in the streets of Baghdad around that statue of Saddam Hussein. The president is obviously pleased, but he is telling top aides it is not yet time to declare victory. One message the White House hopes, though, today's powerful pictures sent on this historic day is a message across the Arab world that this is an American military in a war of liberation, not preparing for any long-term occupation. Paula.
So, John, what does the White House then see as the biggest obstacle getting in the way of proving to the Iraqi public that that's why, indeed, they are there as liberators, not invaders?
They believe it could take several weeks, Paula, to get this interim Iraqi authority up and running. In the meantime, you will have a U.S.-led by a retired general, civil administration in place. Easy for the critics to say, look, the Americans are now running Iraq. The administration says it will move as quickly as possible to get Iraqis in charge of key functions. It believes it can do some of that, perhaps in a matter of weeks, but they say simply until they get the troops into those other cities, until they are sure the military victory is lock solid, they have to deal with that first before they can deal with those other quite important but secondary at the moment political concerns.
And in spite of what the world witnessed in downtown Baghdad today and that dramatic tearing down of that statue, Baghdad remains a very dangerous place. What do administration officials say off the record about the kind of challenges forces face in the days to come?
But one thing the administration is concerned about, Paula, is they believe these pictures do send a powerful message across the Arab world. What they are worried about is that the American people will see these pictures and think mission accomplished. This is a snapshot of downtown Baghdad. There are still skirmishes throughout the city, as our correspondents with the troops have told us, and there are several large cities, including Saddam Hussein's home base of Tikrit, that U.S. troops have not set foot in yet. So what the administration is concerned about is that the American people will think this is over, time for the next chapter, and then there will come a day of heavy fighting, perhaps high casualties, and that will come as a shock. The administration says it is still a very dangerous business.
John King, thanks so much. The day's dramatic events include the death toll of U.S. forces passing the 100 mark. Here is a look at the casualty figures from the war in Iraq. According to the Pentagon, 101 killed, 86 as the result of hostile action, 15 non-hostile, 399 wounded, 11 missing in action, 7 prisoners of war. The British Defense Ministry says 31 British troops are dead, 9 hostile, 20 non-hostile, 2 undetermined. There are an unknown number of British wounded and missing and no known prisoners. The Iraqi military has not provided casualty information, but U.S. military officials report thousands of Iraqi military deaths and more than 7,300 Iraqi POWs. Abu Dhabi TV, citing official Iraqi sources, reports that 1,252 civilians have been killed, 5,103 wounded. Because of the chaos in Baghdad, the International Red Cross says it had to suspend its operations in the city, and it is warning of a looming humanitarian crisis. Back to Wolf now.
Thanks, Paula. Our timeline now takes us to the present. It's been a historic and chaotic day in the city that has frankly seen it all. The live picture you're looking at cannot tell the real story of what's happening in Baghdad at this hour. For that, we turn to Craig Nelson of Cox Newspapers. He's at the Palestine Hotel right in the heart of Baghdad. I know it's in the middle of the night, almost daybreak over there. What can you tell us, Craig? What's the mood? What's unfolding?
The mood is one of relief around the Palestine Hotel. As you know, Wolf, yesterday there were 2 journalists killed here by a tank shell that hit the hotel about 12 floors above me. Today, the lobby of the hotel, which yesterday had Iraqi information ministry people in it, monitoring our every movement, is full of Marines. So there's a very, very different mood here. One of security, at least around this particular block. Outside of it, I think it's a very volatile situation. We saw looting today. We saw people wounded on the streets. We saw a lot of very difficult situations that are going to require a lot of policing. We talked to the U.S. Marine commander here of the armored unit that came up Sadoun Street earlier this afternoon, and he told us that the Marines weren't in the business of policing. They were in the business of war. and he was pushing for bringing other troops here to do that policing as soon as possible.
Is there a really visible Marine, U.S. Army presence in Baghdad as far as you can tell, or are they only at sort of sporadic locations?
They're only at sporadic locations. I think they've been very, very selective about where they've camped. They want defensible perimeters. They're frightened about suicide bombers. Saddam's Fedayeen haven't been wiped out. So I think they've been very, very careful about setting up camps in protectable places. And right now, right behind me, we have scores and scores of tanks and armored vehicles. We also have hundreds of Marines, and they've set up a perimeter on this hotel for the night.
Craig Nelson of Cox Newspapers, he's at the Palestine Hotel, a hotel full of U.S. Marines right now, at least in the lobby and around that hotel. Craig, be careful over there. Thanks very much for joining us. Paula, dramatic developments unfolding. We're watching history.
We certainly are. There was one point this morning when we were watching this all happen where we wondered what else we might see during the day. Everybody had their seatbelts on, basically. As John King just made very clear from the White House, Saddam Hussein's regime may be toppled, but the coalition still has plenty of work to do. Coming up, what's next for Iraq? From its economy to its government, we'll take an in-depth look at the country's future. Live from the front lines continues right after this.
This year, nearly 1 million families will have their most valuable possessions stolen right from here. It's their own identity. Bank statements, credit card and ATM receipts, pay stubs. In today's world, a little advice. Shred anything you wouldn't want in the hands of a stranger. Hey, Tom.
Protect yourself at home with the shredder more businesses rely on for superior performance and durability. Fellows, the world's toughest shredders.
Hey, you're gonna love this new quick rent at National Car Rental. When you get to the airport, they let you choose your own car. Whatever make and model you want.
Whatever color you want.
You can walk right past the counter.
And you don't stand in any lines.
All you need is a major credit card and access to the internet. You rent online at nationalcar.com.
They ought to call it quick and easy.
Bypass the counter.
You don't have to stand in line. Choose your own car. Click, click, click on the computer.
It's all about me, Rent. Huh?
Choose the rental car company that lets you choose your own car. Quick Rent at nationalcar.com.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Heidi Collins at the CNN Center in Atlanta. We'll have much more on the fall of Baghdad coming up in the next half hour. First, though, a look at other news happening today. Florida's health department says a Floridian who contracted SARS in another country has infected a coworker, raising the risk now of the mystery disease in the workplace. Health officials in the state are also trying to determine whether a 6-year-old is the first child in the state to come down with SARS. The boy has been taken out of school in Niceville, that's near Destin, Florida. The Federal Aviation Administration says the nation's airlines met today's deadline to install new hardened cockpit doors. It was mandated shortly after the September 11th attacks. The FAA says more than 10,000 aircraft serving the U.S. are now equipped with the new doors. Those are a look at some of the headlines making news at this hour. CNN live from the front lines continues right now.
Tanks roll in, symbols fall, Iraqis cheer.
Anyone seeing the faces of the liberated Iraqis, the free Iraqis, has to say that this is a very good day.
But are all Iraqis happy about the fall of Saddam Hussein? In some cities, looting, chaos, lawlessness.
But we have heard reports of widespread looting and destruction of government offices. This is a problem.
Who will police Iraq? And there's a lot of money at stake. Trillions in oil, billions in trade and rebuilding. Who will get a piece of the money pie? This half hour, live from the front lines, day 22. What happens next?
It has been a very long day in Iraq, filled with so many contrasting images, celebration, fighting, chaos. At day's end, many were left wondering what lies ahead.
This is a good day for the Iraqi people.
But has it been? Amidst the jubilant celebration, constant reminders that this is a country on the edge, a country with a very uncertain future. Just miles from the dancing Inferno Square, Martin Savage was embedded with the 1st Marines who were engaged in a fierce firefight at Baghdad University.
There is smoke coming from some of the buildings we can hear now. A lot of gunfire coming from another direction. This may be other units, other Marine units closing from a different direction. To be honest, this was not the exact reception we anticipated.
This is a fight that's far from over.
We have men and women out there in harm's way all over Iraq. There are still pockets of very serious resistance. Our troops continue to come under fire in many places.
And beyond these pockets of resistance lies chaos. Widespread looting from Baghdad to Basra of everything that isn't nailed down. Hospitals packed with the injured, and according to the International Red Cross, ground fire casualties stranded on the battlefield because coalition and Iraqi forces aren't letting ambulances through.
What we observe today is that there is a big problem of lack of security in the area where the military engagement has been going on. We are very concerned that a large number of casualties have not been evacuated.
Through it all, in the shadows, the ever-present question, where is Saddam Hussein?
He's not been around. He's not active. Therefore, he's either dead, or he's incapacitated, or he's healthy and cowering in some tunnel someplace, trying to avoid being caught.
And beyond Saddam Hussein and his sons, the question of who will lead Iraq into its very uncertain future. What lies ahead for this country, for these people, starting over?
Both the White House and the Pentagon stressed today that the war in Iraq is far from over, but when it is over, rebuilding Iraq could be a daunting task. Joining me now to talk about the rebuilding efforts, two people familiar with what comes after regime change. Here in Kuwait, CNN's chief international correspondent Christiane Amanpour, and in Washington, retired General Wesley Clark, our CNN military analyst. Let me begin with you, General Clark, on an unrelated matter, but something interesting. Our senior Pentagon correspondent Jamie McIntyre has now confirmed that the U.S. military has moved its newest and biggest bomb out here to the Persian Gulf, the so-called Moab, a 21,000-pound bomb, the mother of all bombs, as it's nicknamed. No indication it's going to be used for anything. But what do you make of this development to move that new bomb, that huge bomb, out here?
Well, my guess, Wolf, is the planning was already done to move the bomb. It came time to start the movement. We're not quite sure when it was completed, and it was done as a precautionary or deterrent measure. It's there in case it's needed.
That bomb presumably would be used to go way down into some deep underground bunker and destroy whatever is underneath, right?
It would either be used for that, depending on the fusing, or it would create a massive overpressure at the surface, taking down lots of buildings, minefields, surface fortifications, revetments, storage areas, and so forth.
All right, let's talk about rebuilding Iraq after this war. I want to bring in Christiane Amanpour. She's here in Kuwait with me. Christiane, some people say the hard work is only now just beginning.
Well, I think even before one talks about the rebuilding is the immediate stepping into the current vacuum that exists now that the troops have swept through, they've pretty much quelled and removed the regime all over the place. Now what? And we're seeing these pictures. One doesn't want to overemphasize the looting and suggest that this is going to be a lawless, chaotic place, but certainly people are worried that that is what might happen. And we've seen already in towns such as Basra, which have had no regime there, no government structure, no infrastructure for the last week or so, that people are asking for some law and order to be imposed. And the British there have been saying that, look, we're not a police force, we're still in the war fighting mode. So I think the question is security, security, security right now, and humanitarian assistance.
Well, let's bring back General Clark. U.S. military, whether Marines or soldiers, they're warriors, they're not police officers. Who's going to stop the looting? Who's going to bring that kind of security to the big cities of Iraq?
Well, I can't imagine that the U.S. forces won't. We've been in a number of these situations in the past, Wolf. We've always said to ourselves, we're not going to do police work. But then eventually, because we have to maintain order, we don't exactly do police detective work, but we certainly have maintained a presence in places like Haiti, Bosnia, Kosovo. We have intimidated looters and those who bring violence and disorder to the streets, and where necessary, we've acted against them. There's no reason to think it can't and won't happen here. But one thing is in favor of Iraq, Wolf, as we're thinking about these other cases. Iraq is not a failed state. Until we toppled Saddam's regime, it did at least have municipal services and other facilities to some degree.
Well, Christian, you covered Kosovo, you covered Bosnia, you saw the military step in there and effectively recreate that regime, those regimes over there, in effect. Can they do it in Iraq?
Well, I think so, and I think General Clark is absolutely right. The military sort of cliche is when we're a fighting force, not a police force, but of course in these situations when there is a vacuum and when there is nothing there to rely on, no police force. I mean, it looks like the entire sort of security apparatus has dissolved or gone away wherever it is. They will have to step in, and of course they can do it. I don't know in terms of numbers whether they need many more people on the ground. Certainly some in the military have been saying that they need more people on the ground now. But look, there's no getting away from it. One of the big fears before this war started was the post-war situation. We're seeing the looting. Again, let's not overemphasize. I mean, the place hasn't descended into total chaos, but people have been worried about factionalism, about, you know, the whole ethnic squabbles that could happen there. So there are concerns, and you yourself talked to Ahmad Chalabi, one of the exile leaders who's back, and literally screaming for some kind of help now.
He said, where is Gardner? Where is Gardner? Referring to General Jay Garner, who's supposed to lead this interim authority. General Clark, if you take a look at this situation in Iraq right now, and you look at the immediate dangers facing the U.S., what goes through your mind?
Well, first of all, you've got to get out to the northern cities. You've got to get people on the ground there and either accept or compel the surrender of the remaining Saddam loyalists, if there are any. But you've got to have people on the ground to do this, and the more rapidly, the better. Secondly, in these areas that we've already swept through, like Najaf or Basra or Nasiriyah, we've got to go back in there and we've got to assure that order is maintained. We need to put some sort of local administrative authority there, someone who can represent the needs of the people to us. And third, then we've got to get the pipelines flowing for humanitarian relief and water.
Well, it's going to take a lot of U.S. military personnel. Unfortunately, General Clark, we have to leave it right there. Christian, thanks very much. As usual, General Clark, thanks to you as well. Paula, maybe the Army chief was right when he said it would require 200,000 U.S. troops staying there for a prolonged period of time. He got into some significant trouble for throwing out that number, but, you know, it's going to take a lot of work. Paula?
Yeah, I guess those numbers certainly will be tested, won't they? Thanks, Wolf. The joy among many Iraqis today in Baghdad was evident, but what do Iraqis here in the U.S. think? Coming up, Iraqi Americans speak out on the future of their homeland. Please stay with us.
It's powerful. It's beautiful. I can see that. How did they make it so incredibly smooth? It's technical.
Antonio, tonight you'll drive my car.
Again?
Again.
Introducing the entirely new Lexus RX 330. Putting the world on notice. Again.
Next on CNN, Saddam's regime is coming down. We're live in the Iraqi capital and on the front lines. Only on Larry King Live, coming up next on CNN.
I've got to tell you, a few weeks ago, I saw the White's metal detector ad on TV. In no time at all, my local dealer had me out treasure hunting. I was finding the good stuff my first day. And the best part? You can see what's in the ground before you dig it up.
Your treasure hunting adventure can start right now. Call for your free catalog.
My wife said I needed a healthy hobby. She's proud of the weight I've lost and really proud of this.
Call now.
The Rainier Automotive Group is proud to present Eastside Subaru in Kirkland. We're still getting new Subarus every day, so now our selection is bigger and better than ever before. Come in today for huge savings, low interest rates, and top dollar for your trade. We'll even throw in lifetime oil changes from our state-of-the-art parts and service department. Eastside Subaru in Kirkland, guaranteed to make you smile. Eastside Subaru! Part of the Rainier Automotive Group.
CNN, the most trusted name in news.
Just some of the reaction to today's historic day in Iraq, not just for those who live in Iraq, but also for those who live here in the United States. I'm joined by 3 Iraqi Americans now, from left to right: Intisar Al-Kafashi, Adid Miri, and Imam Husham Al-Shani. They are standing by in Dearborn, Michigan, a city with a large Iraqi American population and the scene of much celebrating today. Welcome to all of you. Thank you very much for being with us. Intisar, I'm going to start with you tonight. And by now, this video is probably pretty familiar to most of our audience, and that was with the dramatic tearing down of that enormous statue of Saddam Hussein, followed by a U.S. Marine quickly wrapping the Saddam Hussein's head in an American flag, and that too then quickly came down. We'll watch this sequence of video, but help our audience understand all these sensitivities surrounding the perception on some Iraqis' part that this represents a U.S. occupation, not liberation.
First of all, I think we need to understand what is happening in the Middle East and what is happening in particular with the Iraqi people. I think what we do after the war will be very crucial. We need to really mean what we say and provide total democracy to the Iraqi people. We should have a government that is totally representative of all the people of Iraq, of all the segments of Iraq. Especially right now when all the entire Arabic world is fuming, thinking this is an invasion. If we make a wonderful model, a wonderful democratic government within Iraq, then the rest of the Arab world will be taking a look and will be saying, hey, this is a wonderful government. Maybe this is really will work for us as well. I think we will gain their trust, and it will be the most wonderful thing we can ever do for the people of Iraq. Give hope to the hopeless, give voice to the voiceless people of Iraq. That's what they need most right now. They need the peace, and they need some understanding and some help to put them back on their feet, give them a democratic government.
Adid, are you confident that democracy will eventually take root in Iraq?
Absolutely. The Iraqi society is ready, capable, willing. The Iraqi society is a very diverse society. It has all the infrastructure to embrace democracy. The foundations of democracy, however, have to be wrapped up by prosperity, by the rule of law, by equality, by true representation of all ethnic minorities. The fabric of the Iraqi society is a very colorful fabric, and it can really function in a very colorful way for the rest of the region. It needs that golden opportunity, and I think this opportunity is at hand today. And the opportunity today is in having also a great partnership with the United States. There is also a responsibility for both parties, the United States and the Iraqi people, to make this happen. And I'm fully confident that it will happen.
Husham, I want you to share with us a little bit about what happened in Dearborn today when a rally, for the most part a celebratory rally, was held, and that at one point, I guess, some of those celebrators started to surround some members of an Al Jazeera crew, and it got pretty nasty. What did you see that happen?
Yes, I was there and I saw what's happened, and actually they wanted to interview me too. But the Iraqi people reflected their feeling because they thought that Al Jazeera did not share their feeling. And so many Arab people, they got caught in between. I guess they wanted to defend their Arab nationalism, but they got trapped to be in Saddam's side. So this is the time to prove to the Iraqi people that they are with them, and whoever is supporting Iraqi people, here's the Iraqi people, share us our celebration, share us our happiness, share us our liberation, and we'll forget about the past, and we will start a new page, and new Iraq, new democratic Iraq, new bright future for Iraq.
And just as people are watching the pictures, I want to clarify the fact that I guess 7 police officers at one point had to form a ring around the Al Jazeera reporter and the producer and the cameraman to make sure they were safe. Intisar, I want to come back to you for a moment. Sure. Have you had any contact with your family in Baghdad since today's dramatic developments?
We have not had any contact with them for over 2 weeks right now. And really, it's like with all the tearful joy that we have had today, you know, my heart is still somewhat sad. I mean, I want to hear from them. I want to know what's going on. And I think this is what we need to do right away. If our government, the United States government, needs to gain the trust of the Iraqi people, and the first thing we need to do is to do some humanitarian aid immediately. Get the phone lines back on, get them some water, get the electricity back on. Once we start that process going, you know, then we will really gain more trust within Iraq. But, you know, I haven't heard from my family. A lot of people have not heard from their family, and we're all worried, you know, especially when I see the looting, which is kind of normal. You know, chaos usually comes after a great period of oppression by a certain government. But I am very hopeful that everybody will be okay, and I know they are cheering just like we are cheering here today. My brother was taken by the Iraqi government a long time ago, back in 1980, and so I know firsthand what it feels to lose a member of your family to an oppressive regime.
Well, we appreciate all 3 of you sharing your reactions with us this evening. Intisar, Adid, and Husham, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
U.S. troops control much of Baghdad now, but if Iraq becomes a democracy, who will lead the country? Coming up, we're going to talk to a member of the Iraqi National Congress. Please stay with us.
CNN's continuing coverage of the war in Iraq. Celebrations in Baghdad, but pockets of fighting and chaos continue to rage. At 10, Aaron Brown brings you dramatic images from the Iraqi capital and eyewitnesses to the fall of Saddam Hussein's regime. Who will run Iraq now? Stay with CNN, the most trusted name in news.
So, anything I should know about since the last time we talked?
I'm thinking about buying out one of my competitors.
Trust for the grandchildren.
Jill and I are separating.
Remarrying. Giving some money to my alma mater.
And I'll be inheriting a pretty substantial sum.
Jerry?
Just thinking about where I'd be if I had to do this on my own.
Building wealth begins with a relationship, and our financial advisors know it. UBS Payne Weber.
You never know when you'll need allergy medicine.
You could be outside, inside, in your car, anywhere. Now you can take non-drowsy allergy medicine right when you need it. Announcing quick-dissolving Alavert. New Alavert starts dissolving the instant it touches your tongue, without water. Get prescription-strength, non-drowsy 24-hour relief. Even Claritin can't beat. New quick-dissolving Alavert. Allergy medicine you can take right when you need it,
Wherever you are.
Closed captioning for selected programs provided by Flexall. Powerful full-speed relief for tough pain.
I've known winning and pain. Old-fashioned pain rubs never help much, but maximum strength Flexall does. Stop the pain. Get Flexall. It's a winner.
The collapse of Saddam Hussein's regime has left a void in Iraq's leadership. The question now, who will lead the country into the future? I'm joined now by Sharif Ali bin al-Hussein. He's a member of the Iraqi National Congress and a cousin of the last Iraqi king, Faisal II. Thanks very much, sir, for joining us. What's your assessment? How long is it going to take for Iraqis to control their own destiny?
Well, hopefully, it shouldn't take too long. Iraq, as General Wesley Clark said, is not a failed state. It had a functioning economy and, in fact, a functioning government. Our problem was that the government itself was pathologically inclined, and it was a terrible dictatorship. So now that that government is gone, really we should look to empowering the Iraqi people as quickly as possible.
Is there a clear leader who should emerge as the next leader of Iraq? As you know, your colleague Ahmed Chalabi is now in southern Iraq with a group of supporters called the Free Iraqi Fighters. Do you think he should emerge as the next leader of Iraq?
Well, I don't think anybody on the outside should really look to impose themselves on the Iraqi people, or should be appointed by the United States or the United Nations. Really, our struggle has been about giving the Iraqi people on the inside the chance to choose the system of government that they want and who should lead them. And really, this is our opportunity to show that we're true to our word and give the Iraqi people that chance. We should engage with them. We should give them the opportunity for all Iraqis, now that they are free, to hear their voice after so many decades of being oppressed.
Well, given this iron rule of Saddam Hussein and his Ba'ath Party, the regime, there's no one, I take it, on the inside, sort of like Hamid Karzai, who emerged within Afghanistan, who might be acceptable to all the various groups within Iraq. Is that your sense?
Well, we don't know until we ask, and that's what I'm saying, that we can't automatically assume that there is nobody and that the politicians on the outside know best. Really, it shouldn't be like that at all. We have to give the Iraqis, whom all the struggle has been about, the chance to speak for themselves, to voice their own opinion, and to join with the political leaderships that have been on the outside in building a post-Saddam Iraq. Otherwise, we end up being like a Hamid Karzai, whose, from all reports, whose control doesn't extend beyond Kabul and the influence of American troops. We don't want that kind of situation.
What about
we
you,
want people who are representative of the Iraqi people.
What about you? Are you planning on going back to Iraq?
Oh, well, definitely, and we're planning to go back. Hopefully, I'm planning to go back in the next few days if that opportunity arises. But I don't look to foist myself on the Iraqi people. Really, what I'm trying to do is get the Iraqi people engaged, to find out what they want, to get them within the process, to work towards an interim authority that will look after the interests of the Iraqi people. And for the first time, the Iraqi people share in their deciding their own fate and not have somebody declare that they know what is best for them.
Sharif Ali bin al-Hussein, thanks for joining us from London, and we wish you and your supporters, obviously this is a tumultuous time, but congratulations. I know how excited you must be. Paula, you were there. You were on the air this morning when you saw that statue go down. I take it must have been an electrifying moment to be an anchor watching what was happening.
It was electrifying, and at the same time, it was a confused picture at that moment, because you might remember Martin Savage had just reached Baghdad University's campus, where he endured some heavy fire. So we had a morning of contrast. It really was a remarkable morning.
It was indeed. Paula, thanks so much. As usual, love working with you. We're going to have to leave it right there. We're going to have much more coverage coming up throughout the night. Larry King Live up next, followed by Newsnight with Aaron Brown right after a quick review of all the late-breaking developments. Good night, Paula.
And good night, Wolf. We hope you'll still need to learn more tomorrow morning, so you'll join us first thing in the morning. I'll be back here at 8 a.m. Eastern Time again. Thanks for joining Wolf and me tonight.
You decided. Once again, CNN is #1. For trust and experience, Americans choose CNN as the most credible news source. CNN is the most trusted name in news. Next on CNN, Saddam's regime is coming down. We're live in the Iraqi capital and on the front lines. Only on Larry King Live, coming up next on CNN.